Thank you to our sponsor for Season 2, Punto Space. The contemporary raw space combines capacity with intimacy. 4 distinct spaces on 3 levels encompass more than 3,500 square feet. Custom configurations, a state-of-the-art audio-visual system, and full-service support provide endless possibilities for realizing your creative vision. Welcome to Currency Shift, the podcast where we showcase and share insights from first, only, and the disruptive. These are people who are creating new lanes and carving new paths for women, people of color, and diversity and inclusion. My name is Sade Simone. Let's get started. We have Audra in the house.
Hey, hey, hey.
Yes. Cheers. Cheers to you. Take a little sip.
Oh, that's good.
Thank you.
I like that.
Yes. So we have my soror in the house, and I'm super excited to present to you all Audra Washington. Audra, would you tell us a little bit about yourself currently?
I am a native New Yorker, so it's good to be home and visiting, but I'm a native New Yorker, and I'm also the publisher of Poised magazine, or poisedmag.com, which is a new digital experience for Black women 40 to 65 plus. So it is a lifestyle brand that just covers everything that we don't see media cover today about Black women.
Excellent. So before we dive deep, because I know you all are excited to hear more about that, because she's right, there's not a lot in the industry focused on women 40 and up. But before we dive deep into that, let's take it all the way back, all the way back to when all of this first started. So tell us a little bit about when you were younger, what were your childhood aspirations?
So I grew up in the Bronx, Soundview projects. Society was just different, right? Music was different. Our culture was different. And my aspirations, honestly, was just to hang out. I mean, just to be that social butterfly. I had a lot of friends. You know, it was about you can hang out in the park or the handball court until 8 o'clock, right when the lights came on. And it was really a social time, but it was also a movement of Black pride and wanting to reclaim, for lack of a better words, Maxine Waters' quote of reclaiming our time, where we really wanted to be empowered. We really we weren't going to take no for an answer. And New York at that time, that was right before the blackout. So we had New York had a lot of political issues going on at that time. I just wanted to have a carefree life. You know, it was all about fun, roller skating, and Skate Key. Every Saturday night, going to Skate Key, hanging out in the different projects, Colgate houses. It was a fun time, but it was also a very political time. And so growing up for me, I saw the women in my family take charge because the men, unfortunately, weren't around. My father wasn't around at that time. My uncles were, in and out of jail, and I didn't have a relationship with them. So it wasn't a bad childhood. That's what keeps me going. It made me very independent. And then I was a latchkey kid, so I had no choice but to be independent and to see that strength of Black women at that, that pivotal point in my life of how to take care of a household, how to maintain your existence, but yet, still be a social butterfly. My mother was a social butterfly. I mean, that's the height of Studio 54 and Leviticus. She would go to work, come home, fix dinner as a single parent, put me to bed. Next thing you know, she was in her party clothes and she was heading out the door. Come back, 5 o'clock, get up. And that was her routine. So it was honestly, a good time growing up for me. So I didn't really have aspirations at a young age. It wasn't until high school when I went to St. Jean Baptiste on 75th Street that I realized that I wanted to be in media in some formal way.
Hold on, before we go too deep, I love where this is going, but just to put context for the listeners, what year is this?
Oh, so this is 1977.
Okay, perfect.
This is 1977. So that was some time ago.
Yes, but it's still good because you brought up Studio 54. So you were around when all of that was happening. And this is in the 70s before all of the drugs hit New York.
Absolutely.
And ran rapid.
That's why I said at that particular point,
it was a
moment in
blissful time.
It was blissful, but yet growing up for me, it wasn't so much seeing the degradation that we experience as African American people living in New York, or being from a single mother, or, you know, having that stigma that typically is attached to certain identities. If you're a single parent, or, you know, if you're a widow, I didn't experience any of that because all I knew was Black music, dance, skate key, roll bounce. When you think of the movie Roll Bounce, that was my childhood. So it was fun. It was lighthearted. There wasn't any competition. You know, you had project competition, but it was more of a social, you know, building your social, you know, network, so to speak, before social media.
Okay, perfect. So now let's jump back into the story. You were saying that you were going to school and that's when you realized.
Yeah, I was always a lover of books, still am. Going to Barnes and Noble and reading and picking up a new book and pages. And my English teacher, Miss Moffitt, was my mentor, and she said, you have the knack of writing and telling stories. And you should think about a career in journalism, because at that time it was either journalism was defined as news, or being in front of the camera, right? Or a writer. And I didn't want any of that. My love was music. My love was Black music, because I was exposed to the entertainment industry at a very young age because my mother worked in the entertainment industry. So she would come home with different kind of 12-inch promo records. You know, I remember seeing the Bobby Caldwell, What You Gonna Do for Love promo album, which was in a heart shape. You know, those are experiences this generation, unfortunately, will never have. So I knew that I wanted to be in media and entertainment in some form or fashion. Yeah. I just didn't know how to get there, because education was always instilled that you got to go to school, you got to get a college degree. So we got there though. And my journey was a very interesting journey starting from high school.
All right, tell us about that, because you went from not having aspirations to just living an ideal childhood that was fun, energetic, and you're just absorbing your environment and watching your mom, right, who seems to be a very influential piece in your life. So once you figured out, all right, I want to do media and entertainment, how did you jump into that industry, and what was that like for you as a woman during that era, jumping into the music industry?
So when I went to college, I'm a proud graduate of Bennett College. I was a mass comm media major. I would come home for the summers. I would not go away to different locations as some students did. I knew I was coming home back to New York because media was either going to be in Los Angeles or in New York. And my first job, or the summers, I would intern at different law firms because I thought I wanted to be an entertainment attorney.
Okay.
Didn't happen. I didn't want to push paper in that capacity. So when I graduated from Bennett, I came home, and my first job was at John Fairchild Publications, that produces W Magazine. And I thought I wanted to be in fashion. And then when I saw the magazine industry, I was like, nope, I don't want that. I don't want it, because it was very, it wasn't creative enough for me, or maybe because I wasn't on the creative side, I was on the editorial side. But then divine guidance stepped in, and I was offered a position and this may sound a little crazy, but I was offered a position at Penthouse Magazine that is now defunct under Bob Guccione as the administrative assistant to his national sales director. And I was there for about 3 years, right there on Lincoln Center.
And Penthouse Magazine is an adult magazine.
It is an adult magazine. So here I am, 23 years old, 21 years old, working at an adult magazine. And then all of the men in my family were like, I want free subscriptions. And so they got this free subscription. After 3 years, though, I had to leave because morally it was against what I believed in. And being and seeing the images and how Penthouse would depict women, even if it was a nude magazine or adult magazine, was degrading. And when you compared the two magazines, Penthouse to Playboy, there's a complete difference.
Oh yeah, very difference between the two.
From that, I took about a month off, just trying to find myself still at a very young age. And then a recruiter called me and said, I have an administrative assistant position if you're interested in going to the interview at ASCAP. I didn't know what ASCAP was. I needed a job, and I was living at home. I said, yeah, that'll work.
And what is ASCAP for the listeners?
ASCAP is the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers. It is a performing rights organization that protects the performance royalty of songwriters and publishers. So whenever there is music that is played on radio, or if it's seen on television, or even if it's played in bars or any place that uses music as part of their experience, ASCAP is one of the performing rights organization that collects those royalties and then distributes back to the songwriters. Okay, so I was the administrative assistant for the membership executive director. And I was the youngest, and I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I hoarded everything that came across her desk. I had finally landed and saw at the age of 23 an opportunity where if I played my hand right, played my cards right, I could grow and elevate in this particular environment. And I did. After 6 months, I was promoted to a membership representative for writers, urban music. What did that mean? That mean it was my job. I was getting paid to hang out, pretty much. But my job was to go out and sign songwriters, up-and-coming songwriters in urban music, Black music, to the Society for the Protection of their Performance Right royalties. So that meant I needed to establish relationships with A&R people in the music industry. Now I'm really in the music industry. I had to establish relationships with attorneys and publicists and the artists and the labels. So as that representative, I wanted to be that person or that go-to person that if you have a new artist, you're going to call me on the phone, Audra, I got this new artist. Yeah. And they need protection. And so come down, sign them up, boom. Some of the writers that I signed while I was there at ASCAP was I spent 7 years at ASCAP.
Wow.
TLC, Whitney Houston, Biggie. I had all of Bad Boy. Like I am the bad girl of publishing, according to Bad Boy. I had the majority of Uptown Records at that town. Working with Heavy, working with Eddie F, working with Andre. I had a few writers from Def Jam, so I was always at the labels, just jumping from label to label. But I had relationships and I built trust. I was 5'1", £105, but I was very serious about my business because the publishing side of the business is the life artery of the entertainment industry, right? That's how they thrive, off of royalties. And there aren't many of us as Black women or even African Americans that understand publishing. So I saw that I was in a unique position. It afforded me a certain posture of knowing information that typically you would not understand or artists did not understand. I have broken up fights in studios where it was just nothing but a cloud of smoke. But when it came down to the percentages that someone might have written and they get their royalty checks, well, he didn't write that song. I wrote that song. Well, how do we know that you wrote it? And register those songs and make sure that their business was in order. That was the best job because my boss told me, it is your job. Your hours don't stop at 6 o'clock. Your hours stop really technically at 11, 12 o'clock because I need you to be on the front line of the up and coming writers.
Wow. This is an amazing journey that you have because you went from just being from the Bronx, you know, dabbling in the projects and like living this blissful, fun, engaged childhood, not knowing what you wanted to do, going to school, realizing, okay, writing, I have that talent, I have that skill. And then just knowing, all right, I want to be in the music industry, not doing Penthouse magazine. So it sounded like you had a little shift there where you were able to recognize, all right, this is what I will accept and this is what I will not accept. And you were able to step away from that and just take that month off. And it sounds like you didn't care about the title. It was the opportunity that you saw with being the administrative assistant, right?
Right. Absolutely. And I would say, and I tell my daughter now and collegiates that I mentored to and some of our, you know, younger sorors, don't disregard the opportunity. It's a short-term season, but grab and learn everything that you can. Because when I was that administrative assistant, I was the best administrative assistant that Lisa Schmidt had. And she saw something in me that was desirable to promote me to that next level of she's that girl that I need on the front line for Black music because the girl that was there wasn't effective. You know, she just want to hang out.
Yeah.
I want to get these writers. I want to be able to create workshops and showcases and really help writers, legacy writers. I'm talking about people like Bernie Worrell from Parliament Funkadelic and Gwen Guthrie. When they come to you and ask you, I need a loan off of my royalties, and you have relationships with them and they can call you and say, I need to speak to Audra Washington directly. And then you have the new generation of writers like Missy Elliott and Timberland. When you remember them when they were in the season of before Missy and before Timberland, they were in Sister, or they were living in New Jersey, staying and producing with Devontae at that time. That was what I was a part of. And it's good to see that genesis of that early beginning, but don't disregard any opportunity because you don't know how it's going to position you in your next chapter.
Say that again for them because I feel like that is a very important key, especially for people when they're graduating from college or when people transition into new roles or they're thinking about moving into new roles. Just understanding that key pivotal piece of information. Say it again for them.
Bottom line is don't be afraid of that opportunity or don't degrade or look down on an opportunity because it will lead you to your next season because you have that skill set. You've had that experience. And don't be afraid. I mean, I guess that too is a part of my upbringing being in New York, being a latchkey kid, growing up in the Bronx. We saw and was so exposed to so many things that half of this generation now, they're so sheltered. I had no fear at that time. So when you said you didn't have any fear, you took a minute and you stepped away for a month. I didn't have any responsibilities. I was living at home. You know, there was no thought that I would not succeed, you know. And New York, you can't be afraid.
That is so true.
You can't. Even walking and taking down the train, you have to be brave. So I didn't have any fear. I saw my mother. She might have been afraid or afraid of certain things, but when it came to adventure or trying something new, it was like, it's a do or die situation. I'm just going to go for it. If it don't work out, I can always go back home. And that has been that's what keeps me grounded. That's what helps me navigate even now at this age of soon to be 52. Don't be afraid.
Okay, perfect. So let's talk about a little bit of the struggles though. Because you said you 5'1", running around to the different labels, breaking up fights, like you being a woman in the industry so early, because in the 80s and the 90s, that's when music was really like taking off, the hip hop and everything was really starting to like really blossom. So what was that like for you on the struggle end, and how did you overcome different obstacles?
Oh my gosh. Okay, so when I entered the music industry, it was right at the pivotal point of the 90s. You know, right when the big explosion of everything, that 90s and that beautiful golden era that everybody refers to, where there was R&B music and you also had rap music and you had, you know, different genres in those categories. So the struggle for me was that work-life balance. That was the struggle for me. Because my life at that time was consumed of working, traveling. I mean, I had the whole entire Eastern Seaboard. So I would be in New York one week. I would be in Atlanta one week. I would be in D.C. one week. Wherever there was Black music on the Eastern Seaboard. And mind you, at that time, ASCAP only had 3 Black writer representatives. No, excuse me, 4. 2 on the East Coast and 2 on the West Coast. And we divided our territory so that way we can cover as much ground as we possibly could compared to our competitors who were BMI at the time. So I spent a lot of time in Hotlanta before it became this Atlanta oasis or this experience that there is now. So there was LaFace Records, there was So Def, there was, you know, Dallas, Austin, and you had you had Organized Noise, the production company. You had so many production camps. The struggle was, you know, sometimes I would wake up and not know where I was. That was a problem. When I was home on the weekends, my Saturday was really my Saturday. I didn't want to go to no club. I didn't want to hear any music. I just wanted to be regular. So it was that work-life balance. As I got older, it was settling down. You know, that as a woman, your biological clock is starting to tick and you're not in a relationship. Or if you're in a relationship with anybody in the industry, you kept it on the low because you didn't want nobody to know your business in case that person was seeing somebody else. So I wanted to start a family. That was my struggle on the personal side. Career-wise, the struggle was gender pay. That was a big issue and continues to be a big issue as we see in, 2019. I wasn't making a whole lot of money at ASCAP, you know, but they gave me an Amex credit card. And so that was my extra pay that I did not get in my paycheck.
Yes.
But gender pay, promotion for doing the work, you know, not just being paid for what you're worth, but being recognized by those in a very male-dominated industry. And then being a Black woman in a male-dominated industry who would promote me to that next level. And I'm sorry to say that it wasn't the women that promoted me. It was the men. And it was white men who said, okay, well, we're going to give you this and we're going to give you a few coins extra than what you've made. And, we'll give you this title. And so I had to deal with that struggle of not being paid what you're worth, having to not have my tribe support me, maybe because they weren't in a position to elevate. We weren't in that position to elevate because we didn't write the checks.
Right.
So it's still like that, though. And that is a struggle. It's changed somewhat, but it's still a long road compared to the male counterparts.
So sometimes when you're going through struggles, it affects you in a way where you have mental health, right? So how did you deal with your mental health during those time periods of struggle? Like, what was kind of like your outlet to really bring yourself back to reality so that you could continue to do your job and do your job as well as you did?
So that at that time, Iyanla had just released her first Acts of Faith.
Okay.
Right? I had gone to one of her workshops in Maryland when she would do these workshops, and I had gone. And so I would look for meditative books or go to church on a regular basis when I was home to kind of keep me grounded, right? But I also had my mother, and I had my closest best friends from high school and from college that kept me grounded and humble as well. And so that was the balance of my mental health, because when you have your core that can call you out, that know you like the back of their hand, that can say, no, sis, that's not going to happen. I'm coming to get you, or what's going on. I had that. So I didn't really have, that was the balance of my mental health.
It's having that core group.
It's having that core group. And my core is raw. Yeah. And I had, and even in the industry, I had several women to support. We supported each other. Some to this day I'm very close to. I can call them and they'll be like, no, let's not go there. And I was the youngest. So some of them now are in their 60s. And these are women who have been rocking with these Black music executives. Like, they are the original Black music executives as far as females. Right. They would call you out. So I was able to gravitate to them just to talk about job struggles, or, not being paid what I'm worth, or didn't get the promotion, or, being targeted. They understood because they had gone through that experience. So I had to say that my mental health was really based on, my belief, my faith, but my core. They kept me whipped into shape whenever there was that, you got 24 hours to feel bad and okay. So now let's just get back to it. What's going on?
Yeah. So for the people listening, I really want you guys to understand that having a core, not people that just ego stroke and tell you everything that you want to hear, but having a core that essentially is going to be raw and authentic with you. Like Audra said, where they can say, all right, you didn't get that job, you didn't get that promotion, cry about it for today, but tomorrow we got to get back to business.
And or what did you say? Let's replay this.
Okay. What did you say
in your interview?
Yes, exactly.
Give it back to me so we can critique it.
Exactly.
So, and even to this day, like, I can call them, and a lot of them have shifted out of entertainment, and they're in different fields. And I have one that's in HR, and she's like the director of HR in New Jersey. I'm not going to say where, but she's in HR. And I had a situation, and I needed some HR advice. And she said, oh, I've seen this before. They're trying to get rid of you. You done told a man what to do, and he ain't feeling it. So now you do. She said, here's the language. She said, but this is what I need you to do. So I had that group, and still have that group, that I can say, even if we don't talk every day, this is what's going on. How do I handle this? Or could I have said something differently? Yes. Could I have done something differently? But you need to be and have 3. It doesn't have to be 5 like mine, or 7, that can call you out on your stuff, because we all have stuff. And, but that's going to elevate you as well and say, okay, you messed up on here, but here's where you did do well.
Exactly. All right. So we went from, like, you're in the music industry. We understand the struggles. We understand the mental health. So how did the magazine come about? Like, where did that come from, essentially?
Gosh. I'm going to get in trouble for this. So in 2013, I had just dropped, and this is a true story. I'm not going to go through line by line, but it is a true story. 2013, July, end of July, I had just dropped my daughter off at Black Girls Rock for the summer intensive program she was selected to participate in for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother and I had dropped her off at Columbia. We were so excited, you know. She was like a little hesitant. And then my mother and I were just hanging out, you know, because we're home. We're going to a street festival. We're going shopping. And then we were staying with my godmother that lives on Central Park West. And the two of them are like Celie and Nettie. You know, they get together. It's a whole nother.
That's a Color Purple reference for those of you.
It's a Celie Nettie moment. You know, they clapping hands. They haven't seen each other. You know, they have a conversation and then we out. And the conversation always takes place in the kitchen. So our ritual is I go to the bodega and get the buttered roll and a coffee. And then the three of us would sit in the kitchen and talk. Mm-hmm. So these two were talking about sex. So let me give you the backstory. These women are in their 60s at the time, mm-hmm. mid 65s, and they were talking about sex. Mm-hmm. So just imagine you in the kitchen with your aunts, and your mother and your aunts are talking about sex. That's not a picture that you want in your head, right? Because, you know, and then you got one who's really slick with the mouth. Well, you need to know because I could teach you. No, I'm good. Thank you. But then we started talking about what happens when you're in your 40s, because I felt like I was having like a midlife crisis, but it wasn't actually a midlife crisis. Like, what do I expect at 40? What should I be expecting at 40 or 45? I was turning 45 at the time. What should I expect? Is this what life is supposed to be? Like, mm-hmm. you know, I'm starting to see these gray hairs. You know, it was just so many things going on. And then I started asking them questions. We had diverted the conversation from sex to like Black women's health, mm-hmm. you know, DNA, what's in our DNA. And when my mother and I left, and we started traveling back south because I was living in North Carolina at the time. Right. That's when the aha moment came on. I said, Mom, you're right in that I am lucky that I have two women that I can go to ask questions about health, what to expect. Right. How do I navigate certain things at 45 or 50 because they had already been down that path. Mm-hmm. I said, and it's just a shame that there's no content that is easy to find. I think More Magazine was the only real media type publication that you can get info for women of a certain age. But the challenge was there weren't a whole lot of pictures of us, of Black women who were 40 plus that didn't look like how mass media has depicted us to be. Mm-hmm. They really didn't get to the nitty gritty of Black women health, love, relationships, money, being a widow, being a grandparent, raising mm-hmm. your children or your grandchildren, divorce, HIV. I mean, they did not really go into that topic the way that I felt I needed. Right. And out of that need, Poised was formed. It was also a tribute to our icons. Like, I'm a big fan and lover of Lena Horne, mm-hmm. Diane Carroll, Ruby Dee. Mm-hmm. I'm good with those three women. I had the opportunity to meet all three mm-hmm. in my entertainment career. So for me, it was like Poised, it needed to have something that was reflective. It was like taking Essence that step further, but really focusing on 40 to 65 plus versus the 21 to 35 demo because mm-hmm. they don't get that exposure. They're still touring. They're still writing books. They may have nonprofit organizations, you know, they may be acting here and there, but there was more to them than what you just saw. And so out of that, Poised was born. So it's a tribute to those Black women, but also to really talk and discuss topics specifically for Black women 40 to 65 plus.
So when you were creating Poised magazine, was that at the same time that you were working in the music industry?
No, I was indirectly. I had at that time, I was not as active in it. I had transitioned out. I had relocated to North Carolina. I left New York. But still always dabbling in it and in it indirectly. But media is my passion. Media is my heart. That is in my blood. It's in the DNA. And I just felt that was just really a need that we needed in mass media that we didn't see. Images and stories.
Yeah, and the images and stories on the website are phenomenal. Like you have so many articles that are written about different things that me in my 30s, I'm like, oh, maybe I should pay attention to this as far as like understanding that menopause lasts longer with Black women, or reading about the health issues that women in their 40s and above may face down the road. Talk to us a little bit about how you essentially move forward with launching the magazine and what type of struggles like you faced during that period.
So it took me about a year to kind of figure out the content, but I want to say that I just jumped in. I didn't really have a business plan. Like, most people say, well, you got to have a business plan. Well, you got to have this. I didn't take that route, to be quite honest. Or you have to have a certain amount of dollars to fund your business. I didn't take that route. I self-funded and I just jumped in. I, thought of, what do I want this magazine to be named, or what do I want this digital experience to be named? What is it about Black women, being in a Black sorority, having gone to a HBCU, being in entertainment, having the strong women, in your life, your grandmother, your mother, your aunts who are barmaids or correctional officers. I mean, I grew up literally in Harlem, barmaids, hanging out, the cellar. These are spots that are no longer in existence. But for me, it is those are memories. Right. Willie's Lounge right there on 125th. If anybody knows, Willie's we don't have the Seville Bar and Lounge right there on 7th Avenue. So growing up at that time, I had some really strong influences of Black women. So what was that one word that would describe them, and regardless to how hard they might be, but if there was a meeting in the ladies' room, hint, hint, if they need to take care of business in the lady room, they came back. They was cool, calm and collected. Or, as us too, as sorors, sometimes we got to pull soror. We got to check certain sorors because they get a little crazy. So what does that look like? And so that one word for me, I think the biggest and the hardest part was thinking of the name. And then it just came to me. And I was like, poised. Because Black women are poised. We like ducks. Our paddles, swimming underneath. We know that duck experience, but we work and we have so much on our shoulders that the average person wouldn't know just by looking at us. But we pull it together, we put our best face on, we wear our pearls, we put on our lipstick, and we keep it moving. We have to. We don't have time to, mourn and cry. So for me, it was just, okay, once I had that name, it was full steam ahead. This is the content. I started drafting, our vision, our mission, my mission statement, a vision. And then I pulled in a few people and I reached out to a lot of people that I knew that were writers. I was like, this is what I'm writing. Do you want to be involved? Yes, no. And some said yes, some said no, some want to get paid. I can't pay you right now. Yeah. This is a great idea. What can I help you with? I started then pulling together a media kit, So I took the experiences that I had from administrative assistant. I looked at this as launching a single, and I used those experiences from my entertainment days into creating this experience that I didn't want to be a hard copy because I didn't want it to be regional and I wanted to be cost efficient, and publishing a magazine is very expensive. I wanted this to be a broad reach because eventually I want to hit my sisters in Africa, on a continent. I want to go to London. I want to go to France. The world is big and there's so many of us, and we're all connected by the same hues and we have a broad hue base. So that's how I really got started. The struggle has been, it's still very organic.
Mm-hmm.
It's a battle because you can't get major. So if you want to be authentic, then you're going to self-fund a lot of your own content in creating our content. Content has been the challenge, to be very honest. It's hard to find writers that really want to write stories or part information without costing you an arm and a leg. Say, and for an example, Ebony had an issue with paying their writers. One of the reasons why they're no longer in existence. You know, they would get these contributing writers to add to their story, but then they can't pay them.
Yeah.
You're right. So the model for creating revenue, I had to figure out a different, unique revenue model and how I was going to monetize. The monetization has been the biggest struggle because without the numbers, you're not going to get that mass advertising or that sponsorship. So then how do I keep it authentic? How do I fund it so that way it continues to grow, but yet how do I not lose the voice just because I do have sponsorship dollars or advertising dollars that has nothing to do with the magazine? So it has remained, you know, still very organic. But we've used social media to get our content across through Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, to really show different pieces. Facebook, you'll have the articles, you'll have some, you know, images and content. Instagram, you're going to have your images that are more reflective. Twitter, you're going to have conversation. So we try our best, but I'm a team of 3.
Yeah. Before we go too deep, because you're touching on a topic that is really kind of the heart of Currency Shift. So I look at you as our essential FOD, first, only, and disruptive because of what you've created with Poised magazine, right? So when it boils down to Currency Shift, the heart of it is helping people understand how to use their social currency. And social currency is building social networks to gain access, influence, resources, and networking in the digital space that affects a person online and offline. So when you're talking about how you're using social media and how you're creating content, tell us about in what ways has social media influenced or empowered your brand?
Well, it has definitely empowered us to be very authentic with our images and in our stories. And I mean, what are those, your visual voice? What is the visual voice that we're really trying to convey to, you know, audience that may be following Poise? And that is to see a positive, confident, self-assured, redefined Black woman from 40 to 80, period. So it has influenced, and I say this because I look at it differently. I don't look at it as, oh, this is my opportunity to market and to get funds or product. I'm really trying to stimulate interest just by the visual voice that we have, and drive them to the website for content and for engagement, right? So it's really about showing that positive image because social media, and especially Instagram, you see all kind of stuff. But you also see, you know, there are now brands, you know, that are targeting older women or older men and women who are fly, hip, and ageless. That's one that we are partners, you know, on content. So we've developed partnerships with certain brands that fit our target in our demo. But then too, I also look at what is being posted and look at that as an opportunity of what not to do for Poised. So not so quick to jump into the water just because everybody else is doing it, but what is really best for this brand? Because this is all, you know, your brand is your mark, is your word, and that's your reputation. I'm not counting down to, you know, just because somebody may make a comment on a particular subject, if it doesn't have any relevancy or sometimes it's just best to be silent. We're silent. So I look at it as a moment where we kind of play on both sides of the fence, being authentic to our audience and what we want to, how we want to differentiate ourselves from others, stay aligned to our true mission and our core values, but also look at what other people are doing and not following that same path.
And it sounds like you use a variety of social media platforms. You use Instagram, use Twitter. How do you change the voice for each platform, or is it one voice on all?
No. I tried that one voice on for all, and it didn't work.
Okay.
It didn't work. It does. Well, I will say this: it does work to a certain degree on Facebook and Instagram.
Right.
But for Twitter, that's really a conversation. But what I learned the hard way, and I'm still learning, right? Because social media is growing and it's evolving. Our audience, my audience for Poised, or the Poised audience, they're not really on Twitter. They're not on Twitter.
That's a good point, is knowing where your audience is.
Your audience is.
Yeah.
The Poised audience is either on Instagram or Facebook. That's it. Because they can swipe. It takes a lot of work to be actively engaged in Twitter.
Yes.
I am, personally, I'm on all of them. You know, I'm Pinterest, and we have Pinterest as well. But our audience, our core audience, where I want to reach Black women, 40, 65 plus, even some of our Latin sisters.
Yeah.
I know I can reach them on Facebook.
And how did you figure that out? Because a lot of people, they're like, oh, okay, I have to like repost on all these platforms. But how did you figure out that your audience, your core audience, was on Facebook and Instagram?
Study. Looking at the engagement, looking at the analytics, and just looking at content that we were posting and where there was, response, whether they liked it, whether they didn't like it. And then just taking that baseline and that information and then really seeing it in play and knowing, and then comparing it to a lot of white papers. Nielsen does a lot of white papers when they have their specialized African American audience white paper, or their, Hispanic white paper. And so when you look at that and you kind of do your due diligence, you then start to see the model or the path of understanding where your audience is, how to reach them. Totally different from millennials, because they're baby boomers, or they're Gen Xers, or they're getting ready to transition in. So then how do you reach them effectively where they are at, or meet them in the middle? So it came over time.
One thing that I noticed on the site is that you have a lot of writers, and each one is very, very different. Because part of social currency is tapping into your own network and giving people opportunities to grow their own network. So are you tapping into like LinkedIn or Instagram to find contributors for the magazine?
Instagram, yes. But a lot of the contributors I'm blessed who have contributed have been colleagues, direct relationships, and or friends of a friend, and they want to have that piece out there as well, because it's not just me asking. This is also an opportunity for that person who is that writer, who is that photographer, who is that videographer, for them to have work to say, I'm on this magazine, or, they can link it to that actual page or experience to create their visual portfolio or their written portfolio. So it's like, I see it as a two-way.
It's a mutual benefit.
It's a reciprocal for both.
Yes.
You help me out, I'll help you out, and you get that exposure.
All right, excellent. So out of everything, so we've had this wonderful journey with you, from being free, happy, great latchkey childhood to your college experience and the penthouse, and redefining what your vision for yourself was by jumping into the media industry and really taking advantage of an opportunity despite the title, to growing and being as successful as you were, to launching and developing and creating Poised magazine. Out of all of your experiences and everything that you've lived through, what is one piece of advice, just one piece of advice that you would put on a Post-it for others to read.
Do it. I didn't know, again, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have an outline. I just had this belly, this passion in my belly, in my heart. And I said my prayers like, Lord, you gave me this seed. I need you to help me bring it to pass. This baby. And I was already a mother. So this was a new baby. And I didn't know, honestly, being very transparent with you, I didn't know which way or which direction to go, because you're talking about a lifestyle brand. There's a lot of stuff about Black womanhood I'm still learning. We don't know what we don't know until you come in contact, you have a family member. So I just jumped in. Yeah. I just jumped in and, I learned, and I'm still learning along the way. Good, bad, or indifferent. So just do it.
Just do it.
Just do it.
I like it. Now we're entering the speed round, right? So I'm going to ask you a few questions, and it's just whatever thought comes to mind. First thought. You want to take a sip? You want to? Yeah. Take a
sip. My champagne's been sitting for a minute. Okay, go.
All right. You ready?
Ready.
All right. What gets you out of bed?
What gets me out of bed? Life.
All right. Favorite band or group? Or a musician?
Musician. I want to say right now, it would have to be probably, and this is just one, but off the top of my head, I would have to say it would be the Sounds of Philadelphia with Kenny Gamble.
Okay.
And Leon Huff, because they just didn't do one sound. I mean, they had their own distinct sound. The groups that came out, they had a distinct sound, but there was messages in their music. The vocals, the vocal arrangements, the production. And that's, when you listen to it, like when we were driving in and we were listening, they did a mix on BLS, and we were listening. They were mixing in Teddy Pendergrass as a tribute to his birthday, and just his voice, his velvet voice, and the mix. So I would say that would be one, because I'm big on lyrics, always have been. So yeah, for right now, that's just one. I have a list, but
all right. Favorite drink?
My favorite drink is Moscato wine, strawberry or the white, or even sangria. So wine.
Okay. Role models.
My mom is a role model for me. My daughter is a role model. She's a younger generation, but I would say our sorority too. I think that the 22 founders at that particular time in 1913 to have withstood to step out and just do it.
Yes.
Right? Of the founding of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And to remove themselves from a social organization, but to have the vision and be visionaries to create this organization that was built on principles and core values and political action, to me is a big role model. And just that has been one of the guiding influences for me.
Excellent. Luxury item.
Well, considering I used to be a luxury item girl, I would say spas. Those real. Give me the top of the line spa treatments, like the hot stones and the facials. I'm not a Louis Vuitton girl. I'm not a Gucci girl. I've never been into that name brand luxury kind of. I like experiences. So for me, it's always been, let's go to St. Martin. Let's go to Anguilla. Let's go to Capshaluca. I'd rather spend my money on experiences than on material items.
Favorite food?
My favorite, okay, I have two, but you said one. So since I'm home, I'm going to say El Malecon restaurant on 97th and Broadway, which is a Dominican spot. So the steak and sauce is my favorite food with the red beans.
Nice. Shout out to that restaurant.
Absolutely. Because we will be having that for later.
Favorite country to visit?
Anguilla, Capchaluca, definitely. I mean, to see a place that is just so remote, turquoise blue waters, really white sand beach, and it's warm and it's just tranquil. That to me is my favorite place.
Got it. Best way to give back?
Mentorship. I love collegiates. I love Black girls coming up. Mm-hmm. I love them. Like, I get passionate about them. I love our younger sorors. So when I see them, or I see them going through a process, or they're in their freshman year or their sophomore year, and they want to know, how did you do it? Can you mentor me? And, just talking to them and having lunch. That to me is a way to give back, because it's like Sankofa. We have to continue, or fortitude. We have to continue that stance. That's our posture.
Yes.
So mentoring to them, being an advisor to them, talking to them and learning from them, is a way for me to really mentor our young women coming up and making sure that they're on the right track to take to pass over the baton.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Retirement place.
My retirement place is really coming back home to New York. And there's no place like New York City. I know people are like, what are you, girl? You crazy? Once you live outside the city, whether it be California, maybe California, but for me, New York has a certain energy. It has a certain adrenaline that you can't get anyplace else. Yes. To be able to walk out your door and not have to drive, to have the exposure to all kind of ethnic foods, everything is just close. The activities that you can do, Broadway and just, to me, New York would be retirement. Now, my fiance may say, no, we need someplace warm. California, maybe, or Florida.
You agree?
I mean, I think warmness has its advantages. But, whatever, I'm sure we'll come to a happy medium.
All right, cool. Cartoon.
Favorite cartoon? Favorite cartoon. Growing up or as an adult?
It doesn't matter. It's whatever.
My favorite cartoon would probably be The Proud Family.
Ah, okay. Nice.
Proud Family. It had so many. It was I think that, with the characters, with Penny Proud, her parents, Sugar Mama, her best friends, Deshanae.
It's very relatable.
It is very relatable, but the messages were always positive. So I would say The Proud Family.
All right. Drama.
My favorite drama?
Or whatever comes to mind when you think drama.
Ooh. Greenleaf.
Greenleaf?
Greenleaf. Because I'm a PK kid.
Yeah.
I'm a PK kid. So I look at it through the lens of, wow, really? This happens? And I enjoy the characters and how they intertwine and that whole story of real life. But you're public because you are the first family of a church. And having grown up with a parent being, the minister of the church and expectations, it is very, very relatable.
Got it. Pastor's kid. Excellent. All right. Comedy.
Comedy. Let me think. I want to say my favorite comedy. I haven't seen any of late. Life has been comedic as month. I'll have to come back to that one. I have to think about that one. Comedy
or comedian.
Right now, I would say. Yeah, my fiance. He's stupid. But I would say movie-wise, comedy, growing up, it was always the Sidney Poitier and the Bill Cosby, Let's Do It Agains, because it was just naturally raw talent in those movies. And they were just dumb. You know, when you think of the characters of those and just that was us. So I grew up in that environment. So it was just real.
Final question. What is happiness?
Oh. Happiness to me is just knowing that my family is good, that I'm good, mentally I'm good, my daughter is happy, because as a parent, you just want your children to be happy with where they are at in their lives, right? Knowing that my mother is happy where she's at, and my fiance, you know, we're planning this wedding, and that we're good. As long as we're good, we can deal with all of the outside. So for me, happy is just knowing that my family is good, because it's a small family, and when one is out of whack, it's just like, okay, what we gotta do to kind of bring it back.
Excellent. Is there anything you would like the listeners to know?
Well, for one, go to poisedmag.com, like and follow us. We're also on Instagram as Poised Magazine and Facebook as Poised Magazine. But I think more importantly, that, you know, Poised is a new experience. It's a new experience online, but it's not a new experience. It's just being authentic to who Black women really are that don't get seen once you reach a certain age. And this is the dilemma that we're seeing in Hollywood. But for all of the entrepreneurs who are out there, ages 20 to 65 plus, just do it. Don't worry about the money. I'm still trying to figure out certain things, you know, when it comes to building and expanding. Don't worry about it. Just start small, those small steps. And once you check off your list, you will see, wow, look at the milestones that you have accomplished in, you know, doing what you are just continuing to press forward to do. Don't get caught up in what people are doing on Instagram or Facebook, because we can easily get caught by images and knowing that that's not real life.
Yes.
Stay your course. If it takes you 10 years, it took you 10 years, but nobody knows your journey but you. But just do it. Just do it. Just do it.
Just do it. Final words. Well, thank you, Miss Audra, for being on the show. This was tons of fun, and I can't wait for people to follow you and engage with you online.
Yes.
And tell them how to follow you on IG and Twitter. Drop the channels. The handles.
So on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, we are Poised Magazine, and the actual website is poisedmag.com.
All right, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you to our sponsor for Season 2, Punto Space. The contemporary raw space combines capacity with intimacy. 4 distinct spaces on 3 levels encompass more than 3,500 square feet. Custom configurations, a state-of-the-art audio-visual system, and full-service support provide endless possibilities for realizing your creative vision. Thank you for joining the conversation. To learn more about Currency Shift, go to currencyshiftnow.com. If you feel as though you fit the criteria as the first, the only, or the disruptive, send us an email, info@currencyshiftnow.com. Until next time, keep pushing, stay motivated, and stay encouraged.